Commander DeBarros, Mr. Moynihan, thank you for inviting me here today. Terry, thank you for the kind introduction. You promised to sufficiently embarrass me in front of this crowd, and you came through on that promise. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to share a story from one of my deployments to Afghanistan as an intelligence officer in the Army's Ranger Regiment. It was a summer night in 2019, and a platoon of Rangers from our unit found themselves surrounded and pinned down in a close quarters gunfight. They were out that night on a raid. The mission was to capture or kill a senior enemy commander. But as they moved in, they encountered scores of enemy fighters barricaded in fortified positions. The battle quickly escalated. Enemy reinforcements flooded in, pouring fire upon the Rangers from the surrounding buildings with machine guns and grenades. These soldiers were no strangers to combat, but the mission soon took a dark turn when a grenade detonated next to a Ranger squad leader named Ryan. The blast left him critically injured, bleeding profusely from his right arm and leg and his chest. Two medics jumped to action, applying tourniquets to his arm and leg, but the bleeding from his torso was beyond their means to control. As they worked to stabilize Ryan, a Ranger dog handler staggered over. He collapsed onto the medics with a bullet wound in his neck, his loyal dog still tethered to his waist. So while lying flat in the dirt as the bullets flew overhead, one medic used his middle finger to plug the wound in his neck. He then performed a risky surgical procedure to open an airway and allow the wounded Ranger dog handler to breathe. Only then could both medics return their attention to Ryan. He was still bleeding out, and the medics knew that Ryan would not survive without an emergency blood transfusion. Working quickly, under night vision goggles, and periodically pausing to shield their casualty with their own bodies as explosions rained nearby, the medics drew blood from 3 O-positive Rangers and performed a direct transfusion into Ryan, a battlefield first that kept him alive long enough for the medical evacuation. Ryan made it back to his wife and young son. The dog handler and 4 other critically wounded Rangers all got home safely. And for their extraordinary actions, the 2 medics received the Silver Star, our nation's second highest honor. On Veterans Day, we often talk about service, sacrifice, honor, and courage. These words are familiar and perhaps even overused. They sometimes lose their weight. Today I tell you this story to give those words meaning again. Many Americans do not have a close connection to the military, and they have only a partial image of what the military service entails. Despite over 2 decades of continuous war, most people learn about the military from Hollywood and video games. That's why it's essential for veterans to share their stories, offering glimpses into both the chaotic, confusing reality of combat and the often surprisingly ordinary day-to-day experiences of service members. Since the end of the war in Vietnam, we've relied entirely on a volunteer force. We haven't needed a draft for more than 50 years. And while it's a positive thing that war remains far from the American consciousness, there are costs to relying on just a fraction of the population to defend our country. In 2019, when those Rangers fought for their lives, we were in the 18th year of that war. Many Americans went about their daily lives, largely unaware of the conflict. Many people do not realize we still have thousands of troops deployed to combat zones today. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, they volunteer to serve, understanding the risks and not looking for public attention. They answer the nation's call and return home to their communities with skills and experiences needed to continue a lifetime of service after the military. Veterans like Tom and Tyler Conway, fellow Army Rangers and Rye natives, are leaders within the police and fire departments. Others serve in local government or on school boards. They start families and raise the next generation of Americans who believe deeply in the promise of this nation and in the ideas enshrined in our Constitution. Veterans are not looking for special treatment or for sympathy. Veterans ask only that their fellow citizens not forget the seriousness of war, the lives forever changed, the toll on families who endure long months apart, and the sacrifices made to protect our way of life. I hope that after this ceremony, you take a few minutes and read the names on the memorial wall around the corner. And the next time you have an opportunity, ask a veteran about their service. Listen to their story. It's these stories that bridge the gap between the military and civilian life and bring us closer together as a military. Thank you very much.